So now we quite behind the schedule. May I
sorry.
introduce Miss Pati Pop Poblete. Okay. She is Director of Communications, Global Footprint Network. Used to work for the San Francisco Chronicle
Cities.
before joined the Global Footprint Network. Actually, she won numerous national awards, including first place in the National Headliner Award, Script Howard National Journalism Award, Society of Professional Journalists Sigma Xi Award, and Casey Medal for Meritorious Journalism for the direction, vision, and how to measure it, and instill arrangement. Now I think Patti will lead us to the ecological footprint, and in three layers: city, sub-national, and national level. You you have 20 minutes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be a part of this conference, and I'd like to especially thank GTZ for extending the invitation. We've partnered with them on several projects, and we continue to rely on their generous support and their expertise in areas that we're also interested in. I'm here today to talk about my organization. I represent Global Footprint Network. We're based in the United States. We're a data-based research organization, but we work with national governments around the world to make natural resources and resource limits central to decision making. I have been spending a lot of time the past recent months in Southeast Asia bringing the phrase ecological footprint and the concept of ecological footprint to governments here. What I asked Gunther, thank you, to pass around is what we call our wallet cards. They're very convenient. You put them in your wallet. And we co-produce this with GTZ, and you might not understand it yet, but hopefully by the end of this presentation you will. Okay, first I'd like to, and I apologize to those of you who know of the ecological footprint. I'm used to communicating this concept to audiences who have never heard about it. But Gunther, I'm glad that you brought up the Stiglitz report. In fact, 12 pages of the Stiglitz report were dedicated to the ecological footprint, and it was noted as an indicator that should be part of a host of tools along with GDP to measure a country's success. So what I tell different audiences, no matter who it is, whether it's a corporation or an institution or a government agency, all economies, no matter what you're dealing with, depend on natural resources, right? The tables, the chairs that you sit on, the pens that we use, everything is dependent on a certain type of land use. But how do we continue to use things without knowing how much we have to use? How can we continue to place demands on our natural resources if we don't know how much there is to how much supply we have? So in that sense, the ecological footprint is a resource accounting tool that measures how much productive land and sea area, which we call biocapacity, is required to produce the resources we consume and absorb our waste, such as CO2. If you look at our human demands every day, they include these major sectors: energy, housing, timber and paper, food, fiber, and seafood. These are our human demands, and they're all tied to specific land types, which we call biocapacity. And those different land types are what is like forest for carbon footprint, built-up land, which is urban, forest, cropland, and fisheries. So in very simplistic terms, we have a whole team of researchers and scientists. I am not one of them, but I will attempt to communicate to you how we come up with these numbers. The ecological footprint, when I talk about that, is referring to consumption. So it's meaning how much biocapacity a country's population uses to meet the demands of its lifestyle. And how we come up with that number is we look at the ecological footprint of production. how much total natural resources a country uses within its borders. And then we add that to the net footprint of trade, the imports minus the exports. So that's the very basic methodology of how we come up with the ecological footprint. What we know, or our current situation, is since the 1970s, humanity, global humanity, has been using more resources than the Earth has to offer. Currently, we use, it takes the Earth 1 year and 6 months to generate what we use in 1 year alone. So in economic terms, we're spending more than we have, right? And as with the economic collapse that we saw recently, you can only continue to live on credit for so long before something gives. And in dealing with ecological overshoot, we see the signs of that through climate change and soil erosion and deforestation, depleting fisheries, and biodiversity loss as well. So the challenge, which has been mentioned numerous times here, is that the world is using more than we have. And the opportunity is that government leaders can make a difference by making ecological limits central to policy making. So do existing policies really help sustainable economies, or do they simply exacerbate the problems? And our strategy is to provide this resource accounting tool, a host of tools actually, to help guide leaders make the decisions that will lead to more sustainable futures. Oops, sorry. And we do that at different levels, city, subnational, and national, which I'm going to give examples of. The core of our database is called the National Footprint Accounts, which we release every year. In fact, last week, or a couple of days ago, I was just in Bristol in the UK with WWF International launching the new Living Planet report, which is based on our National Footprint Accounts. And in that data set is the biocapacity and ecological footprint of more than 150 countries. And this has been used for numerous policy making tools. What I'm showing you now is included in that wallet card I showed you. This is what we call the ecological creditor and debtor global map. So if you look at all the countries from yellow to red, these are what we call the ecological debtor countries. These are countries whose populations use or consume more natural resources than is available within their borders. All the countries from green to blue are ecological creditors. These are countries that still have more natural resources than their population consumes. If you look at this map in traditional economic or socioeconomic terms, you would think that the countries from yellow to red are the high-income countries, and the countries that we regard as the ecological creditors are the low-income countries. But if we shift our values to really value our natural resources, it's the low-income countries, the traditionally known low-income countries, that come out ahead, because they're the countries who the ecological creditor countries or debtor countries will be relying on for their resources. Currently, to date, we've engaged with more than 35 national governments, and 9 nations have conducted reviews of their footprint, and 7 have formally adopted it. This includes the United Arab Emirates, Japan, Wales, Ecuador, Switzerland, Finland, and Scotland. As you can see, there's only one country from Asia, which is why I'm here. I'd really like to get Asia, particularly Southeast Asia, more engaged in this work. And the goal for all is for the nations to use the footprint framework to shift policies and investments that support sustainable economies. We have different phases that we go through with each of these national governments, and it's here, and I'll just go over them real quick. Our first phase includes one-on-one meetings and reports and workshops. This is what I recently did in Manila, and what I'm planning to do with Bangladesh as well. Phase 2 is more of the national ministry undertakes a study and works with us to go through that analysis. Phase 3 is national adoption, where the footprint becomes an official indicator of the government agency. And then phase 4 is the nation uses the ecological footprint analysis to really weigh their policy options. And then phase 5 is when they actually implement those policies and set those goals. I want to talk about UAE just for a little bit, because they are one of the few countries that have gone through all 5 phases, and they're very unique in that sense. The UAE in 1991, or Dubai, looked like this. It was all desert. In a short number of years, it went from that to this.